What would you do if the moment you lost your job, your wife decided she deserved a better man? Not a better marriage, but a better provider. That was exactly when my wife cheated. While I was buried in job applications, trying to keep our life together, trying not to sink. She looked me straight in the eyes and said, I deserve to be treated better. I didn't beg, I didn't scream. I stepped aside and let her live that life. 1 year later, she stood at my front door, staring at the life she walked away from. If you've ever felt like you were reduced to just surviving, hit subscribe and stay with me. This is the full story. Wendy and I had been married 3 years, together for 6. We weren't some Instagram couple. We were the kind of couple you see in the Midwest every day. 2 cars in the driveway, leftovers in the fridge, bills paid on Friday, and a quiet pride in the fact that we were handling life. We argued about the usual stuff: money, chores, whose family we had to visit. But it never felt like we were enemies. We'd cool off, come back, and it always landed in the same place: us. Like no matter what, we were still a team. That mattered to me more than romance. Team means you don't keep score. Team means you don't flinch when things get tight. Team means you don't make the other person feel small. Most nights we'd eat on the couch, trade stupid jokes, and talk about the future like it was already ours. House, baby, a little more space, a little more breathing room. And the more we talked about it, the more real it felt. Like life was finally lining up. Which is exactly why we started making plans, like nothing could touch us. Once we said it out loud, a baby, a house, everything got a timeline, and timelines feel like control. We started doing all the responsible grown man stuff: doctor visits, supplements lined up like soldiers on the kitchen counter, healthier groceries, fewer treat yourself nights. Wendy would scroll nursery ideas in bed and bump my shoulder like, look at this crib, look at this name. I'd nod, smile, act casual, while my brain ran numbers like a second job. Down payment, mortgage range, what we could save if we cut back just a little longer. I told myself, put food on the table first, then build the dream. That's how men keep the lights on and keep the future moving. We weren't rich, but we were stable. And stability makes you cocky in a quiet way. It makes you believe tomorrow will look like today, just better. Then, one random weekday morning, my phone buzzed. A calendar invite, company-wide meeting, mandatory, no agenda. And I felt it, the first cold pinch in my gut, like the timeline had just been erased. At the time, it felt like we were finally ahead of life, like nothing could knock us off course. I didn't know then, this was the last moment we'd ever feel like a team. They called it a company-wide update. 10 minutes later, it was over. The company had been acquired, and most roles were being eliminated. They said it like they were reading the weather. Then the email hit my inbox: severance, end date, instructions to return my badge, a clean little document that felt like a hammer. My fingers went numb on the keyboard. I stared at my name like it belonged to someone else. Driving home, I kept rehearsing the same lie to keep myself calm. I'll land something in a few weeks. I'm in tech. I'll bounce back. I said it out loud in the car, like if I heard my own voice sound confident, my stomach would stop twisting. Wendy met me at the door and wrapped her arms around me. We'll figure it out, she said, soft and steady. I held her tight, breathing in her shampoo like it could ground me. But even in that hug, I felt it, something slipping. I hadn't just lost a job. I'd lost the feeling that tomorrow was guaranteed. And that's when fear moved in, quiet as a shadow. The first week I treated unemployment like a project. Wake up early, coffee, resume, applications. I told myself momentum would save me. Then the numbers started stacking up. 20 applications, 40, 60, over 100. My inbox became a routine. Unfortunately, we've decided. We went with another candidate. And the worst ones weren't even rejections. They were nothing. Days of silence that made me feel invisible. When interviews finally came, they came with insults dressed as opportunity. Same responsibilities, half the pay. It's the market, they'd say, like I should be grateful to be lowballed. I'd smile on the call and feel my jaw clench the second I hung up. By the time the month was almost over, we were already barely getting by. Groceries cost more. Gas cost more. Every bill felt louder when you don't have a paycheck to answer it. Wendy still said, "You'll find something," but her eyes started drifting. Less warmth, more calculation, like she was watching a clock. And that was when I started cutting back. Because the money wasn't just tight anymore, it was changing us. I thought the market was the enemy. I thought the problem was timing. I didn't realize yet, the real damage wasn't happening in my inbox, it was happening at home. Once I saw how fast the money was bleeding out, I started trimming anything that wasn't survival. I canceled the streaming services, paused the gym, no more eating out just because. I stopped grabbing coffee on the way home, stopped buying little things that used to make life feel normal. Wendy noticed immediately. She didn't yell at first. She sighed. The kind of sigh that says, "Here we go again." One night she tossed her keys on the counter and said, "I need to unwind, Caleb. I'm busting my butt at work. I can't live like a monk." I kept my voice calm. "We gotta stay afloat, just for a while." She stared at me like I'd insulted her. Then she went quiet. Not peaceful quiet, cold quiet. The kind that fills a room and makes you hear the refrigerator hum. That silence followed me everywhere. At dinner, in bed, in the morning. Like I was taking up space I hadn't earned. And for the first time it hit me. We weren't acting like a team anymore. We were negotiating. Like love had turned into a deal, and I was falling behind on payment. After that, my days became one long scroll. Job boards when I woke up. Job boards during lunch. Job boards in the parking lot before I walked into my sales shift. I'd fall asleep with the laptop still warm beside me, then wake up and do it again like my life depended on refreshing the page. I started avoiding mirrors, not because I hated my face, because I hated what I saw behind it. The tired eyes, the slack shoulders, the look of a guy who used to lead meetings and now measures his worth in rejection emails. Wendy would watch me tap out applications and ask, "So what's the plan?" Her words were neutral, but the tone wasn't. It sounded like a countdown. I'd swallow the sting and say, "I'll handle it." I said it like a man says I'm fine when he's not, because what else is he supposed to say? But inside, the question kept getting louder. Am I still the man of the house? If I can't even guarantee the next month? And the worst part was this. Somewhere along the way, I started feeling invisible, like I was fading right in front of my own wife. And she didn't even flinch. Losing my job hurt, but losing my sense of worth. That was the crack she would later step through. By the time we talked about the baby again, the money wasn't tight. It was thin. The kind of thin where you start doing math in the grocery aisle and putting things back like you're ashamed of needing food. Wendy brought it up on a Tuesday night, sitting at the edge of the couch with her phone in her hand. A crib ad was still open on the screen. She didn't even look at it. She looked at me. "So, what are we doing?" she asked, quiet. I stared at the wall for a second, trying to find a version of the truth that wouldn't hurt, but there wasn't one. "We can't bring a child into this broke," I said. My voice sounded older than it should have. Her face folded. She started crying, the kind of crying that's more anger than sadness. My throat tightened so hard I couldn't speak. I just sat there feeling like I was failing at the one job I thought a man was supposed to do, protect the future. "Age doesn't wait," she whispered, wiping her cheeks like she was embarrassed to be seen hurting. And in that moment, the nursery dream didn't feel like hope anymore. It felt like another bill we couldn't afford. After we put the baby plan back on the shelf, something in Wendy changed. Not all at once. It was slow, like the house losing heat and nobody admitting the furnace is dying. At first it was little comments. Then it turned into a line she started using like it was common sense. "Beggars can't be choosers." She'd say it when I mentioned a job that paid too low, or a role that didn't match my experience. Like my standards were the problem, not the market, not the layoffs, not the math. So I swallowed it. I started applying to everything. Work I would have laughed at a year ago. Data entry, retail, anything that could help us stay afloat. Every application felt like I was sanding myself down piece by piece. And the way she looked at me, it wasn't love or hate. It was evaluation. Like I was being measured by my paycheck and coming up short. The hugs disappeared. The we disappeared. Dinner became TV noise and her thumb scrolling. I hadn't lost my wife yet, but I'd lost the warmth in my own home. And that's when I stopped asking, is this beneath me? I started asking, what will keep us alive? After months of, we'll let you know, I stopped waiting to be chosen. A buddy of mine called and said his company needed account reps, basic tech product, base pay plus commission. It wasn't what I used to do. It wasn't even close. But it was money, and money meant we could keep the lights on. I told myself it was temporary, just something to pay the bills while I climbed back into tech. I repeated that like a shield the first morning I logged in and saw the call list. Hundreds of numbers, names I didn't know, businesses that didn't want to hear from me. 8 hours a day, I read the same script until my voice stopped sounding like my own. People hung up before I finished my name. Some laughed, some swore at me like I'd insulted their mother. You learn to smile with your jaw clenched. You learn to take rejection like it's normal, like it doesn't peel something off you each time. I'd come home mentally wrecked, shoulders sagging, throat dry. Wendy would glance up, barely. Not mean, just detached, like she was watching a man shrink in real time. And the sickest part? A good day was when nobody cussed me out. The sales paycheck helped, but it didn't save us. It was like pouring a cup of water into a sinking boat and pretending the math worked out. We still had the car payments, still had credit cards creeping toward maxed out, still had a mortgage-sized rent that didn't care about my pride. I started paying minimums just to keep collectors from lighting up my phone. Every time I hit submit, it felt like admitting defeat in small, quiet installments. Money infected everything. It was in the air when we woke up. It sat between us at dinner. It turned simple questions into traps. Did you pay this? When is that due? Why did we spend that? Even silence sounded expensive. I ate fast because I was always either working or applying. I slept light because my brain ran numbers in the dark. How many days until the next bill? How many rejections until the next breakdown? Wendy still went out sometimes. Just dinner with coworkers, she'd say, like she needed to breathe in a life that didn't feel so tight. Meanwhile, I was working my ass off, and we were still underwater. And that's when the fights stopped being about money. They started being about respect. I kept thinking if I fixed the money, I'd fix the marriage. That belief almost destroyed me. By then, money had already been grinding us down, but the first real crack didn't come from a bill. It came from a bottle of laundry detergent. I stopped at the store after my shift and grabbed what looked right. Same brand, different scent. I walked in, set the bags on the counter, and Wendy's eyes locked onto it like I'd brought home a mistake instead of groceries. "You got the wrong one," she snapped. I said, "It's detergent, Wendy." I tried to keep it light, tried to keep us from slipping into another fight, but she kept going. Like it mattered. Like it was proof of something. Proof I wasn't paying attention. Proof I wasn't capable. Proof I was another problem she had to manage. And that's when something in me broke loose. I heard my own voice come out sharper than I meant it to. Then do it yourself. The room went dead. Not dramatic. Just dead. The kind of silence that lasts longer than anger because nobody wants to admit what it really meant. We didn't talk for 2 days. We passed each other like strangers in a hallway. That's when I understood. It was never about detergent. It was contempt. And once contempt moves in, you start living like you're walking on eggshells, inside your own home. After the detergent fight, Wendy got busy. At first it sounded normal. We're short-staffed. Someone called out. I'm covering. Then the texts started showing up like clockwork. Working late, don't wait up. Once or twice a week, then every other day, then most days. I didn't want to be that guy. The insecure husband reading into everything because his life already felt out of control. So I told myself it was nothing. I told myself grown-ups work late. I told myself my job was to keep us afloat, not start imaginary wars. But little things stacked up. She started dressing nicer for work. More makeup, better hair. Not the rushed, tired version I'd gotten used to seeing. When she came home, she didn't look drained. She looked switched on, like she'd been somewhere she wanted to be. I asked casual questions. She gave casual answers. Dinner with coworkers. Just unwinding. You wouldn't understand, you're always tired. And I'd nod, because I didn't have proof. I didn't even have the right to accuse without proof. Still, When the lights went out at night, my mind didn't. Debt kept me stressed, but suspicion kept me awake. That week, I started noticing the phone more than I wanted to. Not because I was snooping, because it was always there, always buzzing, always face up like it had nothing to hide. One night, Wendy left it on the kitchen counter while she went to shower. The screen lit up again, just for a second, long enough for my eyes to catch it without my hands moving an inch. A name, Eric. A message, free tomorrow night. I didn't touch the phone, didn't pick it up, didn't scroll. I just stood there, staring like a guy watching a car drift into his lane, too stunned to react. My brain tried to save my marriage on instinct. Maybe it's work. Maybe he's organizing a team dinner. Maybe I'm turning into one of those paranoid husbands. But my stomach didn't buy it. Neither did the silence between us, or the way she'd been coming home switched on instead of worn out. I hated what it did to me. How fast love turns into suspicion. How fast a man starts feeling like a detective in his own home. And that was the first time I saw another man's name. In my kitchen. But it wouldn't be the worst thing I'd discover. Not even close. After I saw that text, I did what I always do when life starts slipping. I tried to outwork the fear. A buddy told me a warehouse nearby needed an inventory supervisor for evenings and weekends. It wasn't glamorous. It was fluorescent lights, steel racks, pallet jacks, and a clock that didn't care how tired you were. But it was extra money, and extra money felt like oxygen. So my days stretched thin. Up at 6 a.m., sales calls all day, smiling into rejection, then straight to the warehouse, boots on, scanning labels, counting boxes, fixing mistakes that weren't mine. I'd get home close to midnight, shower fast, eat something cold, and fall into bed like a man shutting down. Wendy barely asked about it. If she noticed the darker circles under my eyes, she didn't say much. We became two ghosts passing in the same hallway, her keys on the counter, my work shoes by the door, quick hellos that didn't land. Still, I kept telling myself the same thing. If I fix the money, maybe I fix us. And I believed it, right up until the night my second job canceled a shift at the last minute and gave me time I didn't know what to do with. That Friday, the warehouse called an hour before my shift. "We're overstaffed tonight, don't come in." For a second, I just sat there in my car, engine off, hands on the steering wheel like I didn't recognize my own life. An unexpected free night felt dangerous. Like if I wasn't moving, I'd have to feel everything. So I did something I hadn't done in months. I tried to be a husband again. I stopped at a grocery store and grabbed a single rose from the little bucket by the register. Cheap, half-wilted, but honest. I pictured Wendy's face lighting up, even for a second. I pictured us laughing in the car, grabbing something small to eat, pretending we were still a team. I drove to her workplace with my heart thumping like it used to. Hope does that to a man. It makes him stupid in a sweet way. I walked in, rose behind my back, and smiled at the receptionist. "Hey," I said, "I'm here for Wendy." She blinked at me, polite but confused. "Who are you?" And just like that, the hope in my chest snapped clean in half. I stood there holding that rose like an idiot, waiting for the receptionist to recognize me. She didn't. I tried again, softer. "I'm her husband, Caleb." The receptionist gave me this careful look, like she was deciding how much truth to hand a stranger. "Wendy isn't up front anymore," she said. "She moved to back office." I frowned. "Since when?" She shrugged. "Couple months, I think. She got promoted." Promoted. 2 months. And I didn't know. Heat crawled up my neck. Not anger, embarrassment. The kind that makes you want to disappear. I forced a nod, mumbled something, and walked out before my face gave me away. In the parking lot, the cold air hit hard. My hands were shaking around my keys, and I wasn't even sure why. I sat in the driver's seat and stared at the rose on the passenger side like it belonged to another man's life. That's when it landed. While I was grinding 2 jobs and drowning in debt, she'd been leveling up in secret. I wasn't just out of the loop. I was out of her world. And for the first time, I wondered what else I didn't know. What else she'd been hiding right under my nose. Sitting in my car outside her office, I told myself I was overreacting. People get promoted. People forget to mention things. Life gets busy. I tried to make it normal, but the feeling in my gut wouldn't quiet down. So when I got home, I did the thing I hated the most. Something that made me feel small. I logged into our online banking. The joint account was stretched tight. Rent, car payments, utilities, minimums on maxed out cards. It looked like a rope about to snap. Then I clicked Wendy's linked account, the one she barely used. And there it was. A deposit that didn't match any of her usual paychecks. Bigger, clean, a bonus. Then I traced the next deposits. Her pay wasn't just higher, it had jumped. A raise that had been quietly landing for weeks. My chest went hot, then cold. She'd been making more, enough to ease the pressure, while I was still carrying the old split like nothing had changed. 70 on me, 30 on her, like my pride was part of the budget. Then I saw transfers going out to a savings account I didn't recognize, not ours, not joint, not even mentioned. That's when it hit me. This wasn't just money. This was an exit plan, and she was building it behind my back. I didn't confront her that night, not because I was scared of her, because I needed the truth to stay clean. No yelling, no drama, just facts. Around midnight, Wendy walked in like she'd stepped out of a different life. Hair done, makeup still holding, no heavy sigh, no long day, no slumped shoulders. She didn't look like a woman coming home from a double shift. She looked refreshed. I kept my voice even. Late night again? Yeah, she said, kicking off her shoes. Work stuff, then dinner, you know. I nodded like I believed her, like I didn't have numbers burned into my brain. That's when I noticed it, around her neck. A small silver pendant, not flashy, but new. And Wendy never cared about jewelry, not like that. I pointed at it. That's new. She barely glanced down. Oh, one of the girls gave it to me. Too smooth, too casual, like she'd rehearsed it. As she walked past me, a scent followed. Light, expensive, not the soap we used. It hit my chest like a warning. I watched her disappear toward the bathroom, and I made a decision right there in the quiet. Not yet. Not tonight. I wasn't going to accuse without proof. I was going to collect it. The next evening, Wendy came home hot. Not tired. Angry. She didn't even say hi. She dropped her bag on the chair like it offended her. Why would you show up at my work? She snapped. Do you have any idea how that made me look? I stared at her for a beat, letting the irony sit there between us. How it made you look. Not why I was there. Not are you okay. Just damage control. I kept my voice low. I didn't know you'd been promoted. Her eyes narrowed like that was my fault. So I pushed the real thing onto the table. I saw the deposit, the bonus, the raise. She didn't flinch. No guilt, no apology. She rolled her eyes like I'd asked her to confess to buying a new lipstick. So what? She said. I earned it. I don't have to report every penny to you. Wendy, we're drowning, I said. I'm working 2 jobs. Credit cards are maxed out. We're barely staying afloat. She shrugged, actually shrugged, like our debt was weather and I was complaining about rain. My throat went dry. I forced the next words out. Is it Eric? A flicker crossed her face, too quick to miss. Then she looked right at me, and she didn't deny it. For a second, I waited for her to correct me, to laugh it off, to say I was paranoid that I'd lost my mind. She didn't. She just stood there, arms crossed, like she was bored of the whole conversation. I can't waste my life waiting, she said, flat and final. I'm not going to sit here hoping you get back on track. I felt heat rush up my neck. I am trying, I said. I'm doing everything I can to keep us afloat. I'm working my ass off. I'm applying. She let out a short laugh, not a giggle, not nervous, a laugh with no warmth in it, like my struggle was something she'd already stopped respecting. Then she said it. The sentence that didn't just hurt. It rewrote everything. Then fix it faster. Get a better job. It hit me right in the chest, like a clean shot. My blood went hot, but my heart went cold. Because in that moment, I finally understood what I'd been avoiding. She didn't see a husband fighting to survive. She saw a man failing her. And that's when it clicked. This wasn't love anymore. It was judgment. And once your wife starts judging you like a stranger, the marriage is already dead. That was the moment the marriage died. But what she didn't understand yet was that judgment cuts both ways. I didn't plan to scream. It just happened. The way a man finally snaps when he's been swallowing his pride for months and it starts burning holes in his throat. "You cheated on me," I said, voice shaking. "In our house, in our life, and you're standing here like it's nothing." Wendy screamed back like I'd insulted her, like I was the one who crossed a line. We went in circles. Money, stress, my attitude, her right to live. Every word felt uglier than the last. Then I said it, the only thing that made sense anymore. I want a divorce. She didn't look scared. She didn't look sad. She smirked, small and satisfied, like she'd been waiting for me to say it so she could win. "Divorce me?" she said. "With what money, Caleb? Can you afford a lawyer?" It was such a clean hit I couldn't even respond. My mouth opened, and nothing came out. Because she was right. I was broke. I was buried. I was trapped by the price tag of freedom. So I picked up my blanket and walked into the other room, the sound of my own footsteps louder than my heartbeat. And as I shut that door, it clicked. When you're broke, people think you don't get to have self-respect. They think you don't get to leave. The next morning, I didn't argue. I didn't talk it out. I didn't ask why. Something in me finally understood. Emotions were the currency she fed on. And I was done paying. I went quiet. Not the sulking kind of quiet. The focused kind. The kind you get when you stop trying to be understood and start trying to get out. I started writing everything down. Dates, times, her late shifts, the new necklace, the bonus deposit, the transfers to the unknown account. I took screenshots and emailed them to myself. I started keeping receipts like they were evidence in a case, because they were. Every dinner receipt she left on the counter, every purchase, every message that didn't add up, I logged it. I called a couple buddies who'd been through divorce. I asked uncomfortable questions. How much does it cost? How fast can it move? What do I need to prove? What do I avoid doing? Then I started digging for legal help, low-cost clinics, payment plans, pro bono referrals, anything. I wasn't looking for revenge. I was looking for a clean exit. I kept one sentence in my head like a pulse. Broke, not spineless. And right there, in that quiet shift, I stopped being prey. I became a man planning his escape, one careful step at a time. Once I stopped reacting, I started adjusting the numbers. Quietly, cleanly, no speeches. For years, I'd covered about 70%, rent, utilities, car stuff, the extras that made life feel normal. Wendy did 30. Back then it made sense because my paycheck was bigger. But now I'd seen the deposits, the bonus, the raise, the hidden transfers. She wasn't struggling, she was positioning. So the next time I moved money into the joint account, I sent exactly half, nothing more. Wendy noticed fast. She stood in the kitchen with her phone in her hand and asked, "So, who's paying the rest?" I didn't raise my voice. I didn't explain it twice. I just said, You make the same now." It was like I'd unplugged something. Her mouth opened, then closed. No comeback, no fake laugh, just a hard stare, like she was trying to decide which version of me this was. For the first time in months, she felt pressure, real pressure, the kind she'd been letting me carry while she built her escape fund in the dark. And that's when I saw it clearly. She wasn't mad about money. She was mad the ATM stopped working. She tried to turn it into a fight, but I wouldn't give her one. I stayed calm on purpose, because calm is what you use when you're done being managed. A couple days later, I moved my portion of the savings out. Not everything, just what was mine. The part I'd been bleeding into for months to keep us afloat while she smiled and called it work stress. Wendy exploded. "You can't do that," she yelled like I'd stolen from her. I didn't flinch. "I'm paying for a lawyer," I said, "and I'm done covering things you can cover yourself." She started listing bills like a prosecutor, rent, utilities, groceries, her car payment. I cut through it, still quiet. "Your car is on you now." That sentence landed harder than anything I'd said in weeks. Because it wasn't cruel, it was fair. And fair feels like violence to someone who's been benefiting from imbalance. She stared at me like I was a stranger, like she couldn't recognize a man who stopped negotiating his dignity. I realized something right then. Winning wasn't humiliating her. Winning was leaving clean. And that night, While I was double-checking screenshots and receipts, I heard her in the bedroom, laughing at her phone, texting fast, like she was already lining up a life that didn't include me. That weekend, I heard the honk before I saw anything. A short, impatient beep from the street, like someone calling for a rideshare. Only it was my wife. Wendy popped up from the couch like she'd been waiting for it. She disappeared into the bedroom and came back wearing a casual dress she hadn't worn in months, hair done, perfume. That same switched-on look. She moved fast, stuffing a few things into a small bag, smiling to herself like a teenager sneaking out. I didn't say a word. I just stood by the hallway and watched her grab her keys. Through the front window, I saw the car. 2 guys inside. Wendy walked right up and slid into the front passenger seat. Then she leaned over and hugged the driver. Easy, familiar, like it didn't cost her anything. My stomach tightened, but my mind went quiet. No rage, no pleading, just clarity. I stayed behind the glass, hands at my sides, feeling that old ache flare up for a second, then settle into something colder, something truer. Because in that moment, I understood it down to the bone. I wasn't her husband anymore. I was the safety net she kept at home, while she went out and lived. And once you see that clearly, you can't unsee it. I didn't sleep much after that. Not because I was shocked, because I wasn't. I was done being surprised. What I needed now was a door that actually opened. A couple days later, a message came through from someone I barely knew, friend of a friend, local community connection. Hey, I heard what's going on. Call this attorney. He's helped people pro bono before. I stared at the number for a long time before I dialed. Pride is a stupid thing. It'll keep you trapped just to avoid asking for help. The lawyer's voice was calm, businesslike. He asked a few questions, then said something that cut straight through the fog. If it's uncontested, it can be cheap. The key is paperwork, proof, clean timelines. So I got to work. Income records, the bonus deposit, the raise, the transfers to the unknown account, screenshots, dates, notes, everything organized like my life depended on it because it did. I also started looking for a smaller place, a studio, something I could actually afford alone. When the lawyer said, "You're not trapped," my throat tightened. I didn't cry. Men like me don't, not easily. But for the first time in a long time, I could breathe. I didn't announce it, I didn't threaten it, I just did it. One evening, I placed the divorce papers on the kitchen counter like they were another bill, something overdue that finally had to be handled. Wendy glanced down, read the header, and let out a laugh that was almost impressed. "You still have self-respect left?" she said. It was meant to cut, to make me flinch, to pull a reaction out of me like she'd been doing for months. I didn't give her one. I just signed where my lawyer had marked the lines. Slow, steady. My hand didn't shake. Not because I felt strong, because I was past the point of bargaining with someone who'd already left. Wendy leaned back against the counter, arms crossed, wearing that familiar smirk. Like she was watching a kid try to act grown. Like she assumed I'd come crawling back once I felt the cost of living alone. But I'd already done the math. I'd already packed the important things in my head. I'd already found the door. For the first time in a long time, I looked at her and didn't feel fear, just distance. And distance is what freedom starts with. After I served her, I stopped thinking like a husband. I started thinking like a man trying to leave clean. At night, after my shifts, I dug through old emails and bank statements, order confirmations, delivery receipts, serial numbers, the stuff nobody saves until it matters. Turns out I'd bought most of what filled that house, couch, TV, kitchen appliances, on my card, under my name, with digital proof stretching back years. My lawyer told me, if you can prove you purchased it, you can sell it. Don't get emotional, get organized. So I got organized. I took photos like I was listing a property, not a life. Couch from every angle, TV model number, appliances, furniture, tools, everything. Wendy noticed me doing it and her face tightened. "What are you doing?" she demanded. "That's marital property." I didn't argue, I didn't raise my voice. I just kept tapping the screen, capturing proof. Because in my head, one decision had already been made. I wasn't walking away empty-handed. And the best part was, I didn't have to fight her for it. I just had to wait for her to leave the house long enough for me to move like I'd never existed there at all. Wendy started taking trips like she deserved them. Weekend getaways, little hikes, shopping runs downtown. One Friday, she tossed a bag over her shoulder and said something casual, like we were still normal. Then the door shut, and the house went quiet. I didn't waste the quiet. I moved fast, not angry, focused. I packed the things I had proof for, the couch I'd paid for, the TV, the kitchen stuff, small appliances, tools, anything with my name on a receipt. I wrapped, taped, labeled, hauled it out like I was clearing a crime scene, not a marriage. I shipped what I could to my new place, listed the rest online. Watching notifications pop up, sold, felt less like profit and more like oxygen. I wasn't getting rich, I was buying my exit. Then I handled the lease, clean and legal, paperwork updated, my name off, her name on, no speech, no fight. When Wendy came back Sunday night, she walked into a living room that didn't look like a home anymore. It looked like a vacancy. My phone lit up, voicemail after voicemail, her voice tight, shaking. "Where's all the stuff? Caleb, where is everything?" That was the moment she realized I wasn't bluffing. I was gone, just not in person yet. She thought I was trying to scare her. She thought I'd come back. She didn't realize yet. This was the last time she had leverage. At first, the messages were rage, accusations, threats. "You can't do this. That's ours. You're being petty." Same energy she used when she thought shame would pull me back into line. Then the tone changed. A text came in late the next day. "Can you move back until the divorce ends?" Not come back. Not "I'm sorry," just move back. Like I was furniture she needed for a few more months. Another message followed, shorter, smaller. "I can't afford the rent by myself." I stared at my screen for a long time. I could almost hear her saying it, how the words would taste in her mouth. For the first time, her voice wasn't sharp. It was quiet, controlled, like she was trying to sound reasonable because panic would give her away. My thumb hovered over the keyboard. A part of me wanted to reply with something cold, something that would hurt the way she hurt me. But I didn't. I set the phone down and went back to packing. And the peace that filled the room surprised me, because silence wasn't weakness anymore. It was a boundary. Somewhere in that quiet, she finally understood it. The safety net was cut. And this time, it wasn't coming back. The court date didn't feel like a showdown. It felt like paperwork catching up to reality. Wendy didn't contest much. No big speeches, no dramatic fighting over furniture. Maybe she didn't want to spend money on a lawyer. Maybe she thought I'd fold before the finish line. Either way, the process moved faster than I expected, because when one person stops caring, there isn't much left to wrestle over. My attorney kept everything tight. Income records, the hidden bonus, the side account, the timeline. The settlement was airtight, clean enough that even if she wanted to twist it, there wasn't room. No alimony, no shared assets to argue about. Each of us walked away with what we could prove was ours. When the judge finalized it, I didn't feel victorious. I felt emptied out, like I'd been holding my breath underwater for months and finally broke the surface. That night, I slept through the dark. No phone buzzing, no footsteps in the hallway, no waiting for the next argument. And lying there in that quiet, it hit me harder than the betrayal. I'd been alone for a long time. The divorce didn't make me lonely. It just made my freedom official. A few weeks later, I heard how Wendy's better life was going, and it wasn't going the way she'd imagined. I didn't go looking for updates. Life was finally quiet, and I was protective of it. But news travels in small towns and shared circles. One coworker hears something, a friend texts, somebody just thought I should know. Eric's wife found out. That was the headline. The rest came in pieces, screenshots, arguments, a blow-up that didn't stay private. Eric panicked the way married men panic when consequences show up at the door. He ran back to his wife, begged, promised, cut ties. Wendy got dropped like she was never more than a detour. And then the fallout hit her where she loved control, her image. People at work started looking at her different. Whispering, side eyes, invitations drying up. The kind of social coldness that doesn't need shouting to hurt. I expected to feel something sharp, anger, satisfaction, relief. Honestly, I felt light. Not happy, not proud, just lighter, like I'd been carrying a weight that wasn't mine anymore, because karma didn't need my help. I didn't have to ruin her, I just had to leave. And as her circus burned down off-screen, I realized something else. The real work wasn't watching her fall. The real work was building myself back, without shame, without excuses, one day at a time. After the divorce was final and the noise died down, I had this strange problem. Silence. No fighting, no explaining myself, no someone watching me like I was a disappointment. Just me, my paycheck, and a studio apartment that didn't judge the brand of detergent. For a while, I still hated the sales job. I hated the script, the fake cheer, the constant no. But one night, sitting at my little kitchen table with a cheap bowl of noodles, it hit me. Work is work. Pride doesn't pay rent. And dignity isn't tied to a title. So I stopped treating sales like a punishment and started treating it like training. Patience, thick skin, clear communication. I listened more. I pushed less. I learned how to take rejection without letting it take me. Slowly, deals started closing. Not movie magic, just one here, one there, then a small raise, the kind of raise that doesn't change your life, but changes your posture. I started cooking again. Simple food, real food. Something about chopping onions in a quiet kitchen felt like rebuilding myself in small, honest pieces. And once I stopped trying to prove I was still somebody, I finally had room to build toward what I actually wanted, tech again. But this time, I knew I couldn't just apply. I had to sharpen up. I didn't tell anyone I was studying. There was no one to impress, no one to clap. It was just me, a beat-up laptop, and a tired body that still had to show up for work the next morning. After my shifts, I'd sit at the desk in my studio and pull up tutorials. Cloud basics, data pipelines, stuff I used to skim past when my old job felt secure. Tech doesn't wait for you. It moves on while you're trying to survive. At first, it felt humiliating, like being back in school, except older, more exhausted, and with real bills. I'd fight sleep with black coffee and stubbornness. I covered my walls with sticky notes, commands, diagrams, reminders, dumb little rules I kept forgetting. The place looked like a man planning a jailbreak. Weekends became lab time, practice projects, mock scenarios, fail, fix, repeat. Some nights I'd stare at the screen and think, what am I doing? Then I'd remember Wendy's laugh, then fix it faster. And I'd keep going, not for her, for me. When I finally took the certification exam, my hands were steady. The screen flashed, congratulations. I just sat there, quiet, breathing. No applause, just this one clean feeling. I'm back. And now I had something real to take into interviews. With the certification behind me, I stopped blasting my resume into the void. No more panic applying at 2 a.m. like I was trying to outrun shame. I got selective. I tailored each resume like it actually mattered, because it did. Different keywords, different highlights, different story depending on the role. I wasn't begging for a chance anymore. I was making a case. The first couple interviews didn't go my way. One company loved my background but wanted someone more current. Another said I was strong, then ghosted me like everyone else. And here's the part I didn't expect. I didn't collapse. I didn't spiral. I took notes. I replayed my answers. I fixed what was weak and walked back in sharper the next time. When they asked about the gap, I didn't sugarcoat it. Life hit hard, I said. I got laid off. I worked whatever I could. I kept learning. I'm here because I'm ready. A hiring manager actually leaned back and nodded, like honesty was something he didn't hear often. For the first time in a long time, I walked into an interview with a quiet feeling in my chest. I'm enough. Not because they picked me, because I finally did. The email showed up on an ordinary afternoon, right in the middle of my workday. Subject line, we'd like to move forward. I stared at it like it might vanish if I blinked. The process was brutal. 5 rounds in 2 weeks. Technical questions that made my palms sweat. System design scenarios that pushed every weak spot I had. Behavioral interviews where they watched how you carry yourself when you talk about failure. I didn't go in trying to sound perfect. I went in steady, grounded, like I'd already survived worse than a tough panel. When the offer finally came through, I read the number 3 times. The pay was double what I'd made before. benefits, flexibility, the kind of package I used to think belonged to other men, men who didn't fall apart and rebuild from scratch. I sat at my small kitchen table, the same spot where I used to eat ramen and stare at overdue bills, and I cried. Not loud, just a quiet release, like my body finally believed we were going to be okay. Within months, the debt started disappearing. Cards paid off, car handled, a better apartment, a little space to breathe. It felt like the universe handed me everything, right after it took everything away. I thought this was the ending, the comeback, the win. I was wrong. The real test knocked on my door a few weeks later. It happened on a normal weekday, right in the middle of a client call. I was in my little home office, headset on, talking through deliverables like my life hadn't ever fallen apart. Then I heard it. 3 knocks. Not loud, not timid, just certain. I muted my mic and walked to the door, already annoyed at whoever had the nerve to interrupt my workday. When I opened it, my brain stalled for a second. Wendy. She looked smaller, thinner. Her hair was shorter, dark roots showing like she'd stopped caring. The old fire in her face was gone. Her eyes looked tired in a way sleep doesn't fix. "Hey," she said, forcing a smile like we were neighbors. I didn't step aside. I didn't ask how she'd been. I just asked, "What are you doing here?" Her fingers tightened around her bag strap. "Can we talk?" Her voice shook on the last word. She asked if she could come in. I hesitated, then I let her, not out of softness, but out of curiosity. I wanted to see what she'd come for. She walked in, saw the setup, clean desk, new monitor, the kind of calm you can only afford when you're not drowning. She swallowed hard, and then she whispered, "I miss us." And the truth hit me like cold water. My heart didn't move at all. Wendy sat on my couch like she didn't know where to put her hands. She started talking fast, too fast, like if she didn't fill the air, she'd have to hear the silence. She told me her life had gone sideways. People found out. She got labeled. Work got uncomfortable. Friends got distant. The apartment was too expensive. Then the next one was worse. She talked about Eric's wife, how she'd been humiliated, threatened, treated like a joke. Every sentence was a reason the world had been unfair to her. Then she tried a softer angle. "I panicked," she said. "Everything was falling apart. I didn't know what to do." She wiped at her eyes and added, "Eric, he manipulated me. He got in my head." I listened without interrupting, and that bothered her more than any shout ever could. Finally, she snapped, "Why aren't you angry? Say something. Yell at me. Anything." I looked at her and kept my voice simple. "My heart has no place for you anymore." Her face crumpled. She tried one last reach. "Maybe we can just meet for coffee sometimes?" I shook my head. "No." She stared at me like she couldn't understand forgiveness without access, so I gave her the cleanest truth I had. "I already forgave you. That's why I won't reopen it." And in that moment, I saw it. This was the regret she couldn't outrun. Not losing me. Losing the version of me who still cared. After everything, I can say this without trying to sound tough. Losing my job didn't kill me. Being betrayed didn't either. It just stripped me down to the parts that were real. I used to think love was enough. It's not. Love without respect is a bad contract. One you keep paying into while the other person quietly shops for a better deal. And the moment you're measured only by what you provide, you're not a partner anymore. You're a utility. What saved me wasn't revenge. It was rebuilding the basics. Survival first. Keep the lights on. Get stable again. Then love in the form most men forget. Self-respect, self-care, quiet discipline. And finally status. Not the flashy kind. Dignity. The kind you feel when you can look in the mirror and not flinch. Wendy didn't come back because she missed me. She came back because reality hit and the fantasy burned down. Regret isn't remorse. When she walked out of my door that day, I didn't feel triumph. I felt peace. And for the first time, I realized the real revenge was freedom. Now tell me in the comments, Team Caleb or Team Wendy, and why? And if this story hit home, share it with someone who needs it and subscribe. because the next story might sound a lot like yours.